So, what if I told you that some of the biggest, most mind blowing scientific breakthroughs right now aren't happening in a lab at all? Nope, they're happening inside a computer. Today, we're going to dive into the absolutely incredible world of computational chemistry. It's a force that's completely changing the game, reshaping how science itself actually gets done. All right, let's jump in. For literally centuries, all of science has stood on just two main pillars. But over the last few decades, a third one has shown up, and it's so powerful it's becoming just as crucial as the original two. So what is this mysterious third pillar? Okay, before we get to the new kid on the block, let's do a super quick refresh on the two classic pillars that have held up science forever. Right, so you've got this classic dance, the one we all learned about in high school science. On one side, you got theory. This is the what if, the big idea, the aha moment. It's where scientists dream up these amazing models and make bold, falsifiable predictions. Basically saying, hey, if I'm right about this, then this specific thing is going to happen. And on the other side, well, that's the reality check. That's experiment. This is where you get your hands dirty, you head into the lab, and you see if the universe actually behaves the way your theory says it should. But here's the problem. What happens when the math behind those theories gets, well, just insanely complicated? I mean, too complex to solve with a pen and paper or even a calculator. That's exactly where our third pillar makes its grand entrance. And here it is, computational chemistry, or to put it more broadly, simulation. At its core, it's really simple. We're using computers to do all the heavy mathematical lifting that our brains and our whiteboards just can't handle. Think of it like a digital bridge connecting the abstract world of ideas directly to the physical world of atoms. And what this does is create this amazing, powerful new feedback loop. So theory still asks the big questions, but now simulation jumps into the middle. It takes those gnarly equations and solves them, predicting what should happen. This means scientists can run thousands of what-if scenarios right on their computer without ever touching a single test tube. Then they can go into the lab and run a very specific, very targeted experiment to see if the best simulation was right. But the magic here isn't just a one-way street. It's not only about predicting what will happen. It's also about understanding what just happened. Think about it. Sometimes an experiment spits out this blizzard of complicated data, like a messy-looking chemical spectrum. It can be almost impossible to read. By simulating that exact same experiment, we can basically overlay a map on that data, untangle it, and figure out what we're actually looking at. It's all about turning noise into real insight. So the big question is, why now? Why has simulation suddenly exploded onto the scene and become so important? Well, the answer is a massive technological revolution that honestly changed everything. It was pretty much a perfect storm, really, driven by four key things. First off, you had the relentless, unstoppable march of Moore's Law, giving us faster and faster computer chips every year. Second, there was the genius idea of parallel computing, basically getting a bunch of computers to work together on the same problem. Third, and this is a big one, all of this incredible hardware got way, way cheaper. And finally, you have the unsung heroes of the story, the amazing software and super clever algorithms that actually make the whole thing sing. Let's just take a second to really wrap our heads around Moore's Law. We're talking about the number of transistors on a chip, the raw power, doubling every year or two. This wasn't just a small step up, it was an exponential explosion. This growth was the absolute rocket fuel that launched the entire simulation revolution. Just let that sink in. A 1,000-fold increase in computing power every 20 years. That is just a staggering, mind-boggling leap. It's the kind of progress that takes something from the realm of science fiction and makes it everyday scientific fact. But even rocket fuel eventually runs out. And Moore's Law, well, it's starting to bump up against the hard limits of physics. We just can't shrink transistors forever. So what's the next move? It's parallel computing. The new strategy is, instead of trying to make one single chip faster, let's just link thousands or even millions of them together. This is how we build modern supercomputers that can chew through problems of almost unimaginable complexity. Okay, so we've got all this insane computing power at our fingertips. The big question is, what can we actually do with it? I mean, what parts of the real physical world can we simulate inside a machine? Well, first, you need a model. And a model is just a simplified version of reality that's useful for a specific purpose. Remember those ball and stick kits from chemistry class? That's a perfect example.
We all know a molecule doesn't really look like that, but it's a fantastic way to get your head around its structure. Computational models are basically the same idea, just, way more sophisticated and built out of math instead of plastic. And what we can do with these models is just mind-blowing. We can simulate the energy of a chemical reaction to predict how fast it'll happen. We can figure out the incredibly complex folded shapes of proteins, which is absolutely crucial for designing new drugs or understanding diseases. We can even predict exactly what a certain molecule was going to look like to a specific lab instrument. Think about the countless hours of trial and error that saves in the lab. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, it's pretty clear. This isn't just another tool in the scientist's toolbox. We're talking about a whole new frontier for discovery. Yeah, this really is a profound shift in thinking. Simulation isn't some niche thing that only a few specialists do anymore. It has become a central, fundamental part of how science gets done, every bit as essential as a test tube or a microscope. And that brings us full circle. Science used to stand on just two pillars, theory and experiment. Now it has a third, digital pillar, planted firmly beside them. And this leaves us with a really exciting, kind of tantalizing question. If we can accurately simulate reality, right from the molecules on up, what are we going to discover next? What huge, grand challenges will we finally be able to solve?